Well, I wanted to say that while I was in between a couple of videos here, there had been a couple other scraps I had cut out along the way, and there I kind of cut out a couple more little pig scraps, and do think that other things have been taken care of. I've been up to get lunch, and I've kind of had stuff in the laundry, and just went up to kind of put the first load into the dryer and the second load into the washer, so that's worked along fine for the outside of the pigs, that is. But for the underside and face of the pigs, I'll tell you, I've got a couple more to cut out. And I'd say the thing of is that I would be on here just to kind of talk about random subjects while I go about my work. Sometimes we're just not even sure yet how these little hooves, these little points at the end of the toes, are going to come out when we go to sew them and try to turn them out. But because, like we say, I mean, this denim is so thick that we don't know exactly how it's going to work or how it's going to go, but it's going to kind of work a way into us and see what we do and what we mean and what we need. Tell y'all that as for this little opportunity with business, I'd like to say that, you know, my new school cafeteria job's been pretty good to me. It's probably been a little bit less exhausting than the one I used to have, and I tell you, the good thing about it is that it's just giving me the ability to have so much energy left to really work on business matters as much as I need to. And regardless of how circumstances are with work or anything else, I mean, recreation and hanging out in places will never be the same again. But I'd say that even though I was probably a little younger and more the hangout type in those days, I'd say that it's getting where things just kind of change a lot as we age a little more and come to this little point where in life, I mean, some things I'd say they just kind of get a little more vain the older you get. Things that used to be exciting when I was younger, they kind of get to where they don't really get to be as much pleasure anymore the older you get. And some things in life, I mean, are things in which I have to say that probably enough older now that the pleasure of doing it could never be the same, regardless of how much less stressful your life in general gets. I mean, I went to the doctor yesterday and discovered my blood pressure was a little high. Kind of increased my medicine a little bit to try to get me a little bit further along. And I say that there's going to be some things I'm going to be taken care of later in life, but I say that it just could be that, things get a little different in life sometimes. And I know one thing for sure, sometimes, just sometimes, I think that the generational changes are things that can affect us in ways we may not always understand. We learn things for the better in life, and I'd like to demonstrate a little something here as far as what we're going to do in the future. But what it is like where you kind of see that this is the outside of the pig and this is the inside. It's going to be a thing where we're going to kind of sew together along here in the ear, sew these tabs together to attach the back of the face to the front of the other part, and up here too to attach to the head and make it so that the hooves are going to be lined up in the back to be sewn together, and we're going to do likewise with the other piece and make it so that these two backs are sewn together like this, and these two fronts are sewn together like this, and kind of make it so it's going to come out as a new way of doing the old thing. Sometimes I've always heard all those phrases they use in those videos where they kind of say, some people say that old is gold, and others will say that something new is the thing to do. There's kind of different places I've been and different things I've done, and I'd say that there's probably going to come times when old things that I've closed will be opened back up. And I mean, I kind of deleted my TikTok not too many weeks ago because it kind of, I'd say for me, it just wasn't doing me all that good, so probably felt like I just didn't need it anymore, and never really did business on it anyway, just kind of did little random things and followed my friends' posts, and occasionally just would say come on there and probably just like I'd say find a little silliness to engage in and little things to copy and share and get all the attention of my peers. I say it's like the times when we get our sillies out is just the best times in our lives. And I'll tell you with this opossum, I'm going to do it the same way. Sometimes there's also just different ways of cutting up different people like to do. I mean, and even on my job, there's certain people who like to do it certain ways. Certain ways I'm okay with doing it. Certain ways I wouldn't prefer to do it. It all just differs from each one of us to the next, and so much we find out as we go about working in it. I say that there's some co-workers I have that probably have some things in common with, some with which I don't, and I'd say that life gets kind of different in ways we know. Sometimes I'd say our little jobs and career choices get a little bit better with us over time. Kind of for a few days I was growing some whiskers around my cheeks, and just today finally got around to getting a shower and shaving them off. Things can go a little different in life when I'm not going to work, so things will get a little bit out of routine here and there with that, but it's just one of those things that in life we can manage. There's probably reasons I hadn't been out as much as Starbucks and Pacini's. Maybe just would probably not know whether or not I'll be out to McLeod's this week, but today is my day to kind of, catch up my laundry, because there's been a few little things I've been running behind on about that, and really needing to kind of work on them, catch them up, and then have plenty of clean clothes to wear, especially pairs of socks. Probably ran out of them a time or two. I will also like to mention some things about that old nativity playlist I made about the Nativity Carving Challenge. Advertised that a little publicly up on my little Instagram, on my little Facebook business page, and kind of paid to have an ad go out for it and try to get a little bit more people to watch it. And we don't know exactly how many views we can count on getting when it comes to videos, but I'd say of all things I've shared and shown, I'd like to say that that was one that really just meant something when it always just came down to it. And for as far as my little work goes, I'd like to say that some people kind of put little laughs on the video playlist. Some people kind of made comments saying it was funny and kind of put little GIF symbols of little laughs and things like that. Was trying to kind of curious, trying to figure out exactly what was funny about those videos. But it could take a little time to get down to it. I think with me, I guess I'd say that sometimes just the way I talk on and on kind of makes people laugh, I guess. The fact that I just kind of say whatever I think, whatever's at the top of my head at a certain moment. If that's really good, I would probably hope it could kind of get me a little more audience sooner or later on here. Maybe even help me kind of make a little better business a time or two. And I even heard about how Levi Strauss, whenever he was cutting the denim from the tents and making them into jeans, how people bought the patents from him and they kind of took his patent and made jeans from other companies too, from all kinds of other dealers. And that was one thing I just took my best little interest in, was all the things I could really see him do. And sometimes reading about him was exactly how I got my inspiration to take the denim and make it into the stuffed animals. I will tell you about the pants he made. They weren't really called jeans until after the time of the Civil War. I mean, World War II, I'm trying to think, World War II. The Civil War was even before Levi Strauss's time, I think. But what it comes down to is just the fact that it's just that in his days when he made them, they were only called denim pants in his lifetime. He died in sometime in the early 1900s, between 1900 and 1910 sometime. Can't remember exactly what year, but I mean, I know that of course World War II didn't come later than that, and that was the era in which the name jeans was given to them. But as for how he was, I say that it was just one of those things where, like I said, they called them denim pants in his days, and the original intention of him inventing them was because the construction workers were always just tearing up their pants with all the work they did, and the reason he invented them was to find a solution to that. It was to find a solution to the fact that the construction workers were always tearing up their pants working, because in those days, just regular pants, or what were considered casual or dressy in those days, they were just easy to rip, easy to tear, kind of like some of the trousers people still wear for dress up nowadays. And whenever it came to him, I mean, the denim was supposed to be a much stronger material, and since it was a stronger material, that's the reason why the construction workers were able to wear the jeans and not be ripping up their pants so much. So before they were even casual pants or recreational pants, they were always a work pair of pants. Even among my mom and her two brothers, her youngest brother, from what I heard, he was the first one ever to get a pair of jeans among them. And that was probably because, I mean, he's been a construction worker since the beginning, and they probably kind of used them to do construction work before they used them to do anything else. There's been jobs I've worked where I've had pairs of pants that just ripped from all the moving around I did just to kind of clean things and put stock away, and all the work that gets involved in all of that. And so whenever I was kind of tearing up pairs of pants I had, I kind of went out and bought some extra pairs of jeans to do that. It was just cafeteria work, but still, it was a lot of cleaning in that kitchen to do. So that was kind of how I just handled that matter and got it taken care of, got it in my hands. And I'd say that the work shall come along, and that was kind of one reason I felt so inspired to buy some jeans to work in, since nowadays, at least in the school district that I work for, you're allowed to wear them to work if you're a cafeteria worker. Didn't always used to be that way in the past, but so I knew that that was what Levi invented them for, so that was kind of what I'd say was the reason I went out and got the pairs for work that I did, just to kind of avoid all those rips and tears. And these days, jeans get old, they get ripped and torn from being worn so much and used so much, and once they get to that very state, that's when I start cutting them to scraps and making them into these little stuffies. So, and as for my days in McLeod's coffee shop and days when I first started going in there with my animals and stuffed things, there were times I had people donate me pairs of jeans and scraps of denim that I'd work with and make more things out of. And I'd say that just a little time and work went into this stuff and made it so it got so much better to work with and do. And I tell you one thing for sure, there were some times when I got some jeans and denim shirts, donated to me that smelled like smoke. And that was kind of a thing where even in my bedroom I had to have special places for them so they wouldn't be giving me headaches where I tried to sleep and couldn't keep much of anywhere else in the house, because that smell would kind of give my mom a headache too. And we tried putting them outside in the air and letting them air out, and that didn't help none. But nonetheless, one thing my mother does is she gets me Tide Sport, because the way I perspire and sweat so much from my work, it's like my clothes, you just couldn't get the smell out of my clothes from regular detergent. So she got the Tide Sport, because, and it's called that because it's not only for athletes, but just for anybody who gets a lot of sweat in their clothes and needs it. And it just really gets rid of all the odor and smell. So I decided to take those jeans and those denim shirts that smelled like smoke and wash them in Tide Sport just to see what that would do. And I tell you, it helped more than anything. Knowing the things you use things for, that goes to show that they could be useful for quite a number of other good things too. And things that are made to eliminate odor in one way can eliminate odor in many other ways as well. So I'd say as for a little work that comes, we got a little time in our lives where we put stuff in our hands to make use of what we have and what we do. Sometimes I say these days, there's people I kind of miss having them around, miss knowing where they are. Sometimes wonder about them now and then, but they're all just doing fine as far as I'm concerned. They're all just more than likely doing very well. There's a lot to find out now. I do sometimes believe some of these patterns when we get finished with certain pieces, we might do other certain arrangements of them. I think the further we work about them, the more trial and error, the more ways we can find with them that we can make it so that the pieces are going to turn out better in the end, and make it so we've got better work in our hands, all the light of our world and all the brightness therein. Oh, we see that we are shining lights on others and brightening little paths to us, and finally got little more steps to take. We go further along, making things just what we want them to be, and finally come down to where we see a little light in our days, little times in life. And oh, I tell y'all something, people. Oh, those old days of my life. Look back on my teen years and I think there's little things to regret. But don't let that dictate how we do anything today. Make sure we brighten this world, come up to better sizes. I say, put a little line into the work. Some of these lines that were supposed to be done in these things, they're coming out too easily. I use a whiteout pen to make my little marks on black felt, and when I was doing something like that on a little table in the Starbucks cafe in Commerce in Nicholasville, it kind of happened that the whiteout kind of bled through the table a little bit, and I was kind of a little concerned, not knowing how it would do. But one of the supervisors thought, oh, it didn't hurt it anything. It actually gives it a little extra character. And when we all get done, we've kind of got the ways to take this along to us. And as of this moment, did me a little good just to come on here, share a little work of what I could do, make things seem better, make things seem good, and oh, the things I kind of remember as a kid, you know. Oh, about how sometimes learned really young as a kid from a little banner my mom had up in the kitchen when we were kids about sewing teddy bears, and little teddy bears kind of, you know, demonstrating sewers and things they do and don't do. And one of those little things on there said they don't cut paper with their sewing scissors. I mean, that's really the truth, you know. Cut paper with your sewing scissors, they're going to get to where they won't be sharp enough to use to cut fabric anymore, let alone cut this heavy denim. I have very strong hands. I have stiff hands, you know. That's probably one reason I can take the scissors and cut that denim, or even put the needle and thread through it to sew it, because that's because I have strong hands. I can carve hard woods. I can probably do a lot of things with my hands that a lot of people can't. And that's just where I come in, get pretty strong, and there's things I've learned about how little things go and how they do. And man, I tell y'all that sometimes it takes a lot of strength to do what I do. There's older people out there who can't really open their own little plastic bottles of soda or water or tea or whatever. They get me to use my strong hands to open it for them. That's something that they kind of mention. They say, because you're young, you can do it. Yes, I tell you, you know, I've probably got strong hands. Don't think I'll have it that way for the rest of my life, but I'd say for now, it's one thing I've been blessed to use, and really long fingers too. That's kind of one of those reasons why whenever I've played some instruments I had long enough fingers to do it. Back in the days when I still played a lot of guitar, I had people tell me how they'd like to do that, but their fingers weren't long enough to do it. And it's all one thing, you know. I don't have God's hands, but I tell you, you know, I mean, we all just kind of are gifted in different ways. I mean, I know there's been some people who I've heard about who sometimes they had nothing left to use but their brain after they were in accidents, and it always happens to all of us, to the best of us, and in all the worst ways. But we know God makes it all work together for good. He makes it all do a little good in us and see us through and make us all happy in His presence, and blesses us all with unique gifts and unique abilities. I couldn't have the ability of every person I know, but I've just been blessed with the ones I have. My strongest feature, my hands. I thank you all for coming on here again and watching. I ask you all to take care and be safe, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to click that subscribe button.